The lights don't just come on in Studio 6B. They snap awake like a warning. A low hum rolls through the room, the kind you feel in your chest before you understand it with your ears. The band tunes up, the audience buzzes, laughter flickers too loud, too fast, like people trying to convince themselves this is going to be a normal night. But something is off. You can taste it in the air, metallic, electric, wrong. Ryan Reynolds is backstage adjusting his jacket, smiling that smile the world thinks it knows. On the other side of the curtain, Jimmy Fallon flips his cue cards, unaware that in a few minutes, the rhythm of his show is going to fracture. Before we step into that moment, before the smile hardens and the jokes sharpen, hit subscribe to Fame&Frame, tap like, and drop a comment right now. Because stories like this don't live on the surface. And once this night starts moving, there's no rewinding it. The announcer's voice booms, polished and cheerful, promising comfort. The crowd applauds on instinct. Cameras glide like predators, hunting the best angles, the cleanest reactions. Jimmy Fallon jogs out, waving, grinning, feeding off the energy like he always does. He's relaxed, confident. This is his house, his playground. The monologue lands clean, safe jokes, easy laughs. The room exhales. For a second, everyone believes the illusion. Then the words come. My next guest. The applause spikes before the name is even finished. Ryan Reynolds steps into the light, and the temperature in the room shifts. He looks effortless, too effortless. That casual stride, the half wave, the grin that feels like it's been sharpened on a whetstone. The audience roars. Jimmy claps, laughs, pulls him into a hug that lasts half a beat too long. Cameras catch it, freeze it. Later, people will slow it down frame by frame, looking for cracks. They sit. The desk between them is suddenly not furniture. It's a line. Jimmy leans forward, eager. Ryan Reynolds, everybody. Ryan nods, soaking it in, eyes flicking briefly to the audience, then back to Jimmy. The band quiets. Silence settles. Not awkward yet, but watchful. The first question is soft. Safe. A new project. A familiar dance. Ryan answers smoothly, voice warm, self-deprecating, the crowd laughing on cue. Jimmy laughs too hard, slaps the desk. The rhythm is there. For now. But beneath Ryan's words, there's a different current. He's relaxed in a way that feels deliberate. Like a boxer leaning into the ropes, letting the other guy throw the first punch. His eyes don't just meet Jimmy's, they linger. Measuring. Waiting. Jimmy pivots, trying to steer into comedy. You're always messing with people online, he says, smiling. I mean, you never turn it off, right? The audience chuckles. Ryan tilts his head. A beat passes. 1 second too long. Oh, I turn it off, he says. I just don't always tell people when. Laughter ripples, but it's uneven. Jimmy laughs too, nodding, but there's a flicker, something like confusion. He moves on quickly, asking about family, about movies, about anything that keeps the pace light. Ryan plays along. Mostly. Then it happens. A joke that sounds harmless. A callback. Jimmy makes a playful dig about Ryan's constant presence, his brand, his jokes that never stop. The audience laughs. Ryan smiles. And then the smile changes. You know, Ryan says, voice still calm. It's funny you say that. Because this show, it kind of lives on that same thing, doesn't it? The laughter stumbles. Jimmy blinks. What do you mean? Ryan shrugs, casual. I mean, big smile, lots of laughs, everyone pretending nothing ever gets uncomfortable. A murmur runs through the crowd. Jimmy chuckles, trying to catch it. Well, we like to keep it fun. Sure, Ryan says. Fun's important. Especially when you don't want people asking harder questions. The word harder lands heavy. Jimmy shifts in his chair. I don't know what you're talking about. Ryan's eyes lock onto him now. No wandering. No jokes for the crowd. Just him and Jimmy under the lights. You do, he says quietly. We've talked about it. Off camera. The band doesn't play. The audience doesn't laugh. The silence is sudden, total, like oxygen sucked out of the room. Jimmy laughs again, sharper this time. Ryan's just messing with me, everybody. Ryan doesn't laugh. He leans back, crosses his arms. Am I? Somewhere in the audience, someone coughs. A camera operator shifts their weight. The control room is probably screaming right now. Fingers hovering over commercial breaks, wondering if it's already too late. Jimmy clears his throat. Okay, he says, trying to regain footing. Let's talk about the movie. Ryan nods slowly. We can. Or we can talk about why you told me not to bring up certain things the last time I was here. A collective gasp ripples through the room. The audience feels it now, the shift from playful chaos to something raw and unscripted. This isn't a bit. This isn't promo banter. Jimmy's smile tightens. That's not. You said it would kill the vibe, Ryan continues, quoting him with eerie precision. Not great for the show. Jimmy leans forward, lowering his voice. This isn't the place for that. Ryan leans forward too, mirroring him. Then why does it feel like exactly the place? Their knees are inches apart. The desk between them suddenly feels too small, too fragile to hold what's building. The audience is frozen. Phones itch in pockets. People know instinctively that they're watching something that will not stay in this room. Jimmy tries humor again. Man, you came in hot tonight. Ryan's eyes flick to the camera. I came honest. That word honest echoes. The band leader glances nervously toward the producer. No cue comes. Jimmy's laugh dies halfway out of his mouth. What do you want, Ryan? He asks, the question slipping out before he can stop it. Ryan pauses. The longest pause yet. He looks around the studio at the cheering fans who aren't cheering anymore, at the cameras that have stopped feeling like toys and started feeling like weapons. I want, he says slowly, to see what happens when the jokes stop working. Jimmy straightens. This is a comedy show. Ryan nods. Exactly. Another silence. Thick. Pressurized. Jimmy's voice hardens. You're crossing a line. Ryan smiles again, but this time it's all teeth. Funny. I thought that line disappeared the moment you decided what I could and couldn't say. The crowd reacts now, whispers, shocked laughter, scattered applause from people who don't know what else to do. The tension is unbearable, like a string pulled too tight. Jimmy glances toward the camera, then back at Ryan. We're going to break, he says. We'll be right back. Ryan doesn't move. Are we? The red light on the camera flickers. The band waits. And for the first time all night, Jimmy Fallon looks like he's not sure who's in control. The screen fades, but the moment doesn't. And just before the cut, Ryan leans in one last inch and says, barely above a whisper, tell them what you asked me not to say. Cut to black. The lights don't dim during the break. They glare brighter, crueler, like interrogation lamps. The applause sign flickers uncertainly, then goes dark. The audience is no longer an audience. They're witnesses. You can hear it in the way people breathe, shallow and synced, like they're afraid sound itself might tip something over. Jimmy Fallon sits frozen behind the desk, jaw tight, fingers locked together so hard his knuckles have gone pale. Across from him, Ryan Reynolds hasn't moved an inch. He's calm in a way that feels dangerous, like a man who's already decided how this ends, and is just waiting for everyone else to catch up. The red light on the main camera blinks off. Technically, they're off air. Nobody believes it. A producer's voice crackles faintly through an earpiece somewhere off stage. Urgent. Panicked. Jimmy doesn't listen. His eyes never leave Ryan's. You're doing this on purpose, Jimmy says under his breath, the smile gone now, stripped clean. You know exactly what you're doing. Ryan nods once. Yeah, I do. The audience can't hear the producer, but they can feel the tension ripple outward. A woman in the front row leans forward, hands clasped so tight they're shaking. Someone else quietly lifts a phone, then hesitates, afraid they might be seen, afraid they might miss something if they blink. Jimmy exhales sharply. We had an agreement. Ryan tilts his head. We had a conversation. Big difference. You don't blindside a host on his own show, Jimmy snaps, voice low but cracking around the edges. Ryan's eyes soften for half a second. Not sympathy, something colder. Understanding. You don't tell a guest to edit their truth so your brand stays clean. That word again. Brand. Jimmy laughs, bitter this time. This is television. Everything's edited. Ryan leans in, forearms on his knees now, closing the distance. Then why were you so nervous about this one thing? Jimmy opens his mouth. Stops. The silence stretches. 10 seconds. 15. The crowd starts to murmur, sensing blood in the water. This isn't playful chaos anymore. This is a crack spreading through glass. A stage manager edges closer, whispering urgently, We're back in 5-4. Jimmy straightens instinctively, muscle memory kicking in. The smile tries to come back. It fails. 3. Ryan doesn't move. 2. Jimmy swallows. 1. The red light snaps back on. The band plays a quick, forced sting, too cheerful, too loud, like laughter piped into a funeral. Applause flickers weakly, scattered and unsure. And we're back, Jimmy says, voice pitching higher than usual, brittle. Still here with Ryan Reynolds, everybody. A few claps. Nervous laughter. Ryan looks directly into the main camera now. Not the crowd. Not Jimmy. The lens. The millions of invisible eyes beyond it. Hey, he says softly. Sorry. We were just having one of those off-camera conversations that somehow never stay off camera. The audience laughs. Real laughter this time, sharp and startled. Jimmy doesn't. Jimmy tries to regain control, leaning forward, hands open. Ryan, you know we love having you here. You always bring energy. Ryan smiles. You mean unpredictability? Sure, Jimmy says quickly. That too. Ryan nods slowly. Then let's not pretend this is new. The crowd reacts to that, whispers, heads turning. Jimmy shifts in his seat. What exactly are you implying? Ryan looks at him, holds the gaze. That every time I come on this couch there's a list. Jimmy's eyes widen just enough for the camera to catch it. A list. Jimmy repeats, laughing lightly. Come on. Ryan shrugs. Topics to avoid. Jokes not to cross. Stories that are better saved for another time. Jimmy shakes his head. That's not. You sent it, Ryan says calmly. The audience gasps, a sharp intake of breath that ripples through the studio like a wave. Jimmy's laugh cuts off. His hand tightens around a cue card, bending it slightly. That's standard prep, he says. You know that. Ryan nods. Sure. But this one was different. How? Ryan doesn't answer immediately. He looks out at the audience again, at the faces glowing under the lights. Because this one wasn't about time, or pacing, or laughs. He turns back to Jimmy. It was about fear. The word lands like a slap. Jimmy's voice hardens. Fear of what? Ryan leans back, spreading his hands. You tell me. You're the one who said it would make people uncomfortable. Jimmy's smile snaps back into place, sharp and defensive. This is getting weird. The audience laughs nervously. Someone in the back claps, then stops when no one joins. Ryan nods slowly. Yeah, truth does that. Jimmy slams his hand lightly on the desk, just enough to be heard. Okay, let's reset. Ryan doesn't blink. Why? Because this isn't fair. Jimmy says, heat creeping into his voice. You're turning this into something it's not. Ryan leans forward again, eyes narrowing. Then say it. Say what? Say you didn't ask me to avoid talking about how guests are steered, Ryan says. Say you didn't worry about how it would look if people realized how curated this all is. The audience explodes, gasps, murmurs, scattered applause. The energy spikes, chaotic and electric. Jimmy stands halfway up from his chair before sitting back down, catching himself. His voice drops. You're crossing from playful into personal. Ryan's tone softens, but only slightly. You crossed it first. You just did it quietly. The band doesn't play. The producer doesn't cut. The camera stays locked, unblinking. Jimmy rubs his temples. You think you're exposing something? Ryan tilts his head. I think I'm reminding people that polish is still a mask. The audience starts clapping now. Louder. Braver. It grows until it's undeniable. Jimmy looks out at them, then back at Ryan, eyes flashing. So what, you're the hero now? Ryan smiles, almost sad. No. I'm just the guy who stopped laughing. The clapping falters. Silence rushes back in. Jimmy leans forward, voice low and sharp. You don't get to hijack my show. Ryan leans in too, mirroring him perfectly. And you don't get to decide what's safe to say. They're inches apart again. The tension is unbearable. Jimmy whispers, you're burning bridges. Ryan whispers back, only the ones built on silence. A beat. Then Jimmy pulls back abruptly, straightening, turning toward the camera. We're going to take another break. Ryan's eyes flick to the audience, then back to Jimmy. Go ahead. Jimmy hesitates, because for the first time it's clear. If they cut away now, the story doesn't stop. It detonates. The red light flickers. And just before it goes dark, Ryan adds quietly, "And when we come back, let's stop pretending this was ever just a joke." Cut. The audience erupts. Not applause, not boos, but a chaotic roar of voices, phones lifting, hands shaking, everyone knowing they're watching something that's already escaped the room. And somewhere off stage, someone whispers the one word that changes everything. When the lights come back up, the studio feels smaller, hotter, like the walls have leaned in to listen. The applause sign stays dark this time. No one tells the crowd when to clap. No one tells them how to feel. The energy is raw now, unscripted, vibrating through the seats. Phones are no longer hidden. They're up, recording, shaking. Jimmy Fallon sits rigid, shoulders squared like he's bracing for impact. The desk in front of him looks less like a prop and more like a shield. Ryan Reynolds hasn't changed posture at all. Same calm, same steady breathing, same eyes that haven't blinked in what feels like minutes. The red light clicks on. Jimmy forces a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Okay," he says, voice measured, careful. "Let's clear the air." Ryan nods once. "Please." That word, please, hits harder than any insult. Jimmy gestures vaguely between them. "You're making it sound like there's some grand manipulation happening here." Ryan waits. Lets the silence stretch. The audience leans in collectively like one organism. "I'm saying," Ryan replies, "that when people watch this show, they think they're seeing spontaneity, chemistry, chaos." Jimmy nods. "Because they are." Ryan's smile is faint. "They're seeing a version of it." A murmur spreads through the crowd. Jimmy's jaw tightens. "That's television." Ryan tilts his head. "Then why get nervous when someone peeks behind the curtain?" Jimmy exhales through his nose, controlled. "Because there is a curtain. And pulling it down doesn't just affect me. Who does it affect?" Ryan asks quietly. Jimmy hesitates. A fraction of a second. But it's enough. The audience notices. "Staff," Jimmy says. "Jobs. A whole ecosystem built on this working." Ryan nods slowly. "So the truth is a liability." Jimmy snaps back. "The truth needs context." Ryan leans back, crosses his arms. "Funny. That's exactly what people say when they're afraid of how it looks on its own." The crowd reacts, half gasps, half applause. Someone shouts, "Oh!" before quickly clapping a hand over their mouth. Jimmy raises his voice slightly. "You're framing this like some moral standoff." Ryan's eyes soften again, but his voice stays firm. "No. I'm framing it like a conversation you didn't want on camera." Jimmy points at him. "Because it wasn't meant for camera." Ryan points back, mirroring the motion. "But this is where power lives." That lands hard. Jimmy's smile disappears completely now. "You think you're powerless here?" Ryan chuckles, a low sound with no humor in it. "I think I'm disposable." The audience stills. Jimmy blinks. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" Ryan asks. "Because if this goes wrong, you still have a desk. A network. A tomorrow that looks exactly like today." Jimmy doesn't respond. Ryan continues, voice calm but loaded. "If I go too far, I'm difficult. Unpredictable. Not a great guest." The air feels thick enough to choke on. Jimmy shifts in his chair. "You're a movie star." Ryan nods. "For now." A hush sweeps the room. The cameras catch a woman in the front row with tears in her eyes. Not sadness, recognition. Jimmy rubs his hands together, searching for footing. "So what do you want?" "An apology." Ryan shakes his head. "I want honesty." Jimmy laughs sharply. "This is honest." Ryan meets his gaze. "Then answer one question." Jimmy hesitates. "What?" Ryan leans forward, elbows on his knees, closing the distance again. "How many times have you killed a moment because it scared you?" The audience audibly inhales. Jimmy opens his mouth, closes it. The silence stretches so long it becomes unbearable. The band leader shifts in his seat. A producer's voice hisses faintly through an earpiece somewhere off stage, but Jimmy ignores it. "That's not fair," Jimmy finally says. Ryan nods. "That's not an answer." Jimmy's voice rises. "You don't get to interrogate me." Ryan's drops. "You interrogate people every night." That hits like a punch. The crowd erupts, applause, shouts, the sound swelling and crashing against the walls. Jimmy raises a hand instinctively, trying to calm them, but it only makes it worse. Jimmy leans forward now, anger flashing through the cracks. You think you're brave? Ryan doesn't hesitate. I think I'm tired. That word, tired, lands heavier than anger ever could. Jimmy scoffs. Of what? Being famous. Ryan shakes his head slowly. Of pretending everything is fine because it plays better. The applause dies down, replaced by a charged quiet. Jimmy lowers his voice, dangerous now. You realize this can follow you. Ryan smiles faintly. Good. Jimmy's eyes widen. You want fallout? Ryan meets his stare. I want consequences. A stunned silence. Jimmy stands up fully this time. The audience gasps. This is no longer two men talking. This is a rupture. You're not going to lecture me on integrity, Jimmy says, voice tight. Not here. Ryan stands too. The studio freezes. They're face to face now, no desk, no buffer. Just inches of air and years of unspoken tension. I'm not lecturing, Ryan says quietly. I'm inviting. To what? Jimmy snaps. Ryan glances at the camera, then back at Jimmy. To stop hiding. Jimmy laughs once, sharp and incredulous. You think people want that? Ryan's reply is instant. Look at them. Jimmy turns. The audience isn't laughing. They're not clapping. They're watching, eyes wide, unblinking, hungry for something real. Jimmy turns back, shaken despite himself. This isn't what this show is. Ryan nods. That's the problem. A producer finally steps into view, whispering urgently, gesturing for a cut. Jimmy doesn't look away from Ryan. You're blowing this up, Jimmy says. Ryan's voice is barely above a whisper now. It was already cracked. Jimmy's jaw clenches. If we keep going, there's no walking it back. Ryan holds his gaze. Then don't. Another beat. Another lifetime. Jimmy looks at the camera. At the audience. At the moment slipping out of his control. And then he says the one thing no one expects. Tell them. Ryan's eyes flicker with surprise. Jimmy swallows hard. Tell them what you weren't supposed to say. The studio explodes, gasps, shouting, applause so loud it rattles the lights. Ryan stares at Jimmy, searching for irony. There is none. The red light burns bright. Ryan turns slowly to the camera, breath steady, heart pounding. And just as he opens his mouth to speak, the screen cuts to black. The blackout doesn't feel like silence. Feels like impact. When the picture snaps back, the studio is no longer a studio. It's a pressure chamber that's already ruptured. The applause sign is dead. The band hasn't touched an instrument. Every face in the audience is lit by the glow of phones held high, recording history in shaky vertical frames. Somewhere a producer is yelling. Somewhere else a lawyer is probably already awake. Ryan Reynolds stands in the center of it all, shoulders squared, eyes steady. Jimmy Fallon is still standing too, but something has shifted. The host's confidence, the thing that usually fills the room like oxygen, has thinned. You can see it in the way he swallows. In the way his hands hang uselessly at his sides. Ryan turns fully toward the camera. Not the crowd. Not Jimmy. The world. When people watch shows like this, Ryan begins, voice calm but weighted. They think they're seeing honesty wrapped in humor. The audience is completely silent now. But there's a difference, he continues, between comedy that's spontaneous and comedy that's curated. Jimmy's jaw tightens. He doesn't interrupt. Ryan breathes in slowly. I was asked politely to avoid talking about how guests are nudged, redirected, how certain stories die in the green room before they ever reach that couch. A wave of gasps crashes through the studio. Ryan doesn't rush. He lets it land. Not because they weren't true, but because they were inconvenient. Jimmy finally speaks, voice strained. You don't understand the pressure. Ryan turns to him, gentle but unyielding. I do. That's why this matters. The audience reacts again. Applause breaking out in sharp, uneven bursts. Someone shouts, "Let him talk." Another yells Jimmy's name, torn between loyalty and disbelief. Ryan faces the camera once more. This isn't about one show, or one host. It's about how often we trade truth for comfort and call it entertainment. Jimmy closes his eyes briefly. When he opens them, they're glassy. You think this makes you righteous? Jimmy asks quietly. Ryan shakes his head. No. It makes me visible. The silence that follows is different now. It's not tense. It's stunned. Jimmy steps back toward his desk, gripping the edge like it's the only solid thing left. You realize, he says, voice barely holding, this will be everywhere. Ryan nods. It already is. Cut to the audience. People staring at their screens, notifications flooding in live. Twitter. TikTok. Headlines writing themselves in real time. Ryan Reynolds calls out late-night TV. Fallon unprepared as interview goes off the rails. This wasn't a bit. Jimmy looks around the room he's ruled for years and finally sees it the way the audience does now, exposed. Human. Fallible. We're live, he says softly, almost to himself. Ryan meets his eyes one last time. So are they. The band never plays them out. The show doesn't end with laughter. It ends with shock. The broadcast cuts, but the fallout detonates. Clips flood the internet within minutes. Comment sections erupt into war zones. Some call Ryan a hero. Others call him reckless. Jimmy's name trends worldwide, split clean down the middle. Media outlets argue whether it was brave or career suicide. PR teams scramble. Statements are drafted and deleted. And somewhere millions of viewers replay the same moment again and again. Two men standing under unforgiving lights, one choosing safety, the other choosing fire. The next morning the studio looks the same, but it will never feel the same, because once the mask slips on live television you can't put it back on. Now it's your turn. Was Ryan right to say it out loud? Did Jimmy lose control? Or reveal something deeper? Was this honesty? Or destruction? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Fame&Frame for more shocking cinematic stories that pull you inside the moment everyone else is afraid to touch. Because the real drama isn't what happens on camera. It's what happens when the truth refuses to cut away.